Hey everyone, it's the next day, and I was thinking last night before I was going to bed, I was like, you got a manual for this truck, stupid. Why don't you look up and see if they have maybe some helpful hints on how to get this sensor out, you're going to replace it. Well, tickle me pink, they sure as hell did. Crankshaft position sensor. So, because it's hard for me to show you guys, what I'm trying to get at is that sensor. So what I've been doing is trying to loosen these AC bolts. There's one there and then there's two there. This one I got out, it was a little difficult, but this one you can only go about like a quarter turn, and there's barely enough room to get in there with your wrench and do stuff. Now, what they don't show in the way, but they do mention it here, is like this, the ground cable for the battery, and then also the steering damper. Or is it dampener? No, it's just damper. Okay, anyway, point is, this needs to be removed, at least here, where it bolts up to the frame. And then this also needs to be moved out of the way. There's actually two cables. One of them comes down and bolts in, and then the other one goes around. It's a whole thing. So what I'm thinking is, if I take all that off, the way they are showing this, that sensor's supposed to be like right there, and I don't have to loosen this and move it out of the way. Here's the problem though. I don't know if they show it on the next page or not. Well, okay, see on the next page, they're like, oh look, miracle of miracles, the AC compressor's gone, and you can see it. And they show that it plugs in, and the plug-in's supposed to be that way. So I'd have to grab it, shove it that way, and then it would like curl around and come back out. The issue with this, and they do not show it, is that the wire comes down, you know, like, pretend that bracket's up in here with all the idlers and stuff on it. Well, that wire comes down, part of it splits off and plugs into the compressor here, and then the other part goes down and disappears. And I can't see anything here. I really can't, because, yeah, I've got the fan and everything out, but there's that big ass hose that's full of coolant that runs across the bottom, so I can't even stick my head up here and look directly at it. So the steering damper has to come off regardless, because even if I had to come back and get this third bolt out here, I still need to have all this crap out of the way. So Bossman and I are going to go to town and get a bolt, or a couple of different bolts. Oh, I didn't need to print that page after all, but we're going to get a couple of different sizes of bolts, because the bolt here is rounded off, the nut is, so we're gonna have to cut it off, and then we'll replace it and see what that does. This is by far the hardest sensor to get to. I'm not holding out a lot of faith that it's right in here and I can just get to it, because even if I can see it, I still have to be able to get to it. And the fun thing is, if you get it off, well, then you have to turn around and go put it back on. And you got to be careful, because in my case, this is all covered in like oil and stuff. And so I can't really just shove a new cable or a new plug-in through there and just be careless, or I'll fill it with oil and then it won't work right. Now, I do have dielectric grease, but that's only going to help conductivity if everything's clean. You know, if I shove a bunch of dirt and oil and crud in there, that's not really going to help. So the plan for today is to get this off, because once this is off and plugged back in, then I can start reassembling everything and actually replace the wiring harness. I'm still trying to get the old one off. So that is the plan. We'll see how it goes, and this is really my last good day to work on it, so I'm pretty motivated to get it done. You only have to take off like 8 things to get to anything. All right, I got great news. Well, for me, I don't know that you guys really care all that much, but if you're doing this, you'll probably care. All right, I'm going to see if I can get you in here. There's the compressor. My light's not blinking. That's just the camera for some reason, but there's a compressor. Got it out of the way. You can see the 3 bolts. That bolt right there that I'm covering with the light, that is the hardest one to do, but if you pull those battery cables off and that steering damper, it's actually not too bad. One of the few benefits of having the lower part of your engine just saturated in oil is that everything comes out pretty easy, and it's not all that dirty. So just be careful. These lines do flex here a little bit, and I've got them strapped there, and then I hooked it to the front of the radiator support because, you know, we're all about OSHA level safety up here. So now I'm going to see if I can get you guys down in there. Let me narrow the beam on the light here so I can point a little bit better. Right there is your crank position sensor. So while the paper says it's not behind the compressor, it is behind the goddamn compressor. And the people that wrote that manual were stunned. The people that made the whole engine were stunned, if we're being honest. I don't know how you could put this together and look at it and say, oh yeah, that's a good design right there. Or maybe they didn't care if it was a good design or not. Maybe they were just like, you know what, Ford, fine. You want an engine? We'll give you an engine. And this is the engine they got. So, I don't know. What I do know is that I still have to get in there and clean it again. And then I can pull it off. So, one thing I will note before I forget, when you're pulling those battery cables off, they're bolted. I don't have a pointer anywhere on me, but I'll use my fingers now. All right, so the battery cables, there's a bolt here on the frame, okay, where they're both tied together. And then the one cable goes over and grounds out right on the engine. Now, the bolt that holds the cable to the engine, that is a through hole into the crankcase. So put that bolt back when you get it out of there. And hopefully in your guys' situation, it's not saturated in this much oil. It'll be a little easier to see stuff and it won't be quite as bad. But I'd stick that bolt back in there if I were you. And probably, if you're going to do this, it'd be a good idea to be close to an oil change. This thing needs an oil change. That way, if you do get dirt in there, you go ahead and drain the oil and get that crud out of there, and you will be fine. It's usually a good idea to change your oil after you do a repair like this, where you could potentially get contaminants into the engine oil. So, yeah, that's just little side note. So I'm going to get that clean. I'm going to get disconnected, get this harness yanked out of here. Oh my goodness, Powerstroke Panther finally got out here to help us. What do you think, Powerstroke Panther? Yeah, it's kind of a problem, isn't it? Yeah. It gets to be like that, doesn't it, kitty cat? Yeah, don't go under there, it's dirty. It's dirty. In fact, I'm going to pull this out right now. Get off. Don't go under there, you fruit. Just to, well, while we're here, I've been crawling around in that. It's, you know, there comes a point when you're working on stuff where you kind of have to just say, you know what, screw it. I'm just going to get dirty, and I'll just have to wash my clothes, and that's the way it is. I had to show Powerstroke Panther. It wouldn't be a Powerstroke video if he didn't show up, right? Right. Kevin? What are you doing? Oh, he's doing cat stuff. All right, moving on. There it is. Finally. Where is it? Where did it go? Right here. This is the plug-in that was on there just like that on that damn sensor. So, quite honestly, the best way to get these plug-ins off where you can't get to them is, and I would look at the new harness if I were you. See how the connectors are? Like on this one, there's this little bridge that went over here. I snapped that off, and so that there was nothing like holding it on or whatever. And then I essentially got on this part with a screwdriver and started tapping it off. You got to be careful because you don't want to break the sensor or you're going to be in big trouble. But excuse the wind. But yeah, this is the old wiring harness. Air conditioning, crank sensor, passenger side fuel injection harness. That's for your mass airflow. That's your air conditioning pressure switch. Passenger side glow plugs. Alternator control. That is to the battery. That hooks to the PCM. This hooks to something. Glow plugs. That's your high pressure fuel pump. And that goes to the, no, wait, I'm sorry. That's your exhaust gas temperature plug-in. That's for your high pressure fuel pump, I think. Yeah, that probably is it. Then you've got like air intake, map. That is oil pressure. Then you've got water temperature. Or is that like intake air temperature? I don't remember. This is your water temperature sensor, because it sits behind the fan clutch. And then like that's for EGR probably. I don't care about it. So see, okay, there's something interesting. You've got the fan plug-in right here, okay? And then you've got these two plug-ins, which I think are for accessories, because on, at least one of them is, because on the new one, you've only got this and one other, and they branch off of this whole setup here. Now, keep in mind, we did come back here and splice a new pigtail in, and that pigtail was pretty long. I think it's almost a foot long of wire. They were pretty generous, and they're nice wires and stuff on it. But so then you get to looking in here, and you can see, all right, so this is where we splice in for the back pressure sensor. And notice the difference in wire size. This is 12 gauge. I believe that's what we use, is 12. And this is probably 18 or 20. So, thinking about it later, what we realized was that the reason the back pressure sensor is probably still giving us codes is because this was too big of a wire, and it was trying to push too much current through. Because I think, yeah, down here you can really see it. It's all 12 gauge wire. And it goes quite a ways to the back pressure sensor, and then this, that's the cam position plug-in, turbo actuator, driver's side glow plug, and oil temperature. No, is that fuel or oil? That's fuel. That's fuel temperature. And then the fuel pressure sensors under the passenger side valve cover. But even ignoring these splices here that we did, you can get in here and see this has been spliced together several different times. And while the wires are currently not melted together and the insulation's still kind of there, you can tell it's starting to get a little bit worn and chafed, and it's just, okay, so there's, not counting the splices we did, there's 1, 2, there's a couple more in here that I know about, and I don't think there's any in there. And then, where else did I see some splices? Well, there's one down there. That was us. But there's, I think there's 7 or 8 splices in total through this. And then you've got all these wires twisted together. And there, see, this goes to your whole injection setup. That's for the driver's side, of course, but it's the same thing for the passenger side over here. It's just a mess, and you twist all these wires together, you add a bunch of heat to them. Even if externally they look fine, chances are internally they might be just, worn out, and it doesn't take a lot of voltage being off or anything to start screwing stuff up. Probably the biggest thing, though, honestly, is this right here has been on and off so many times, and every time I take it off, I bend it out of the way. That probably started fracturing wires inside. I don't doubt it. But this harness is a little rough. It was rough even before I started pulling stuff off and pulling stuff apart. Something like that, where I started stripping the wires because I was yanking on it too hard. It should not have pulled off the wire quite that easily. But as I've mentioned before, the quality of automotive wiring has just deteriorated over the years. The old wiring was a lot better. They put more copper and stuff in it, and the insulation was better. If we look behind us at this old one here, I mean, you can see where I've spliced in new pigtails because the plastic connectors wore out. But where I spliced it into that wiring harness for this fuel injection stuff, it's a lot better copper. I can tell you that right now. It's a lot stiffer. It's a lot darker color. This is brighter, more flexible. It's cheaper. They have more wiring, and they're putting it in more vehicles, and so they just start cutting corners. And the result is the stuff wears out. But 280,000 miles is not bad for a factory wiring harness, especially as many heat cycles as this thing has seen. You know, it's amazing it held together this long. All right, so I don't know if these wires are supposed to be, they probably are supposed to be stuck together right there. But there's some other places where I'm sure they're not supposed to be stuck together that they are. And all of this shielding is just crispy. It's not supposed to be like that. It's supposed to be nice and flexible. It's supposed to be more like this. So that's the old harness. It's pretty rough. It's not the worst, I suppose, but it's still pretty rough yet. So I'm gonna go eat, and then I'll come back out here and we'll take a look at the new harness, and then we'll start getting it back in. But let me tell you something. There's no way, absolutely no way, I was getting down in there. You could just see it right there, off the end of my finger. That's where it was plugged in. I don't know if they put like glue on it or Teflon paste or what. I'm putting dielectric grease in it because the last thing I need is for that to quit communicating. If your crank or your cam position sensor is malfunctioning, or if the computer cannot read that the position is correct for either of those, you can't even crank the engine. Well, you can crank the engine, but it won't start, I believe. On mine, I screwed up the crank position sensor, and it wouldn't start. It would crank, but it wouldn't fire. So you got to keep that in mind. Definitely don't want to screw those up. It looks like a lot of room relative to the rest of the pickup and how hard it is to get to things. It looks like a lot of room down there, but the problem is because it plugs in that way, you can't get your hand in the right position. You can't turn it around, and my hands aren't small, so it is a little difficult to get in there. But essentially your best bet is to break stuff off. And if I were you, if you've got the money, since you know what all is involved, since I'm going to put this video up, if I were you, I would buy all the sensors that are hard to get to. I would buy them and replace them while you're going to be in here. I think that would be smart. If you've got the money, and if you think that, you know, they're getting a little old and they could stand to be replaced, if you don't want to risk it, go ahead. I'm poor, and I'm not going to buy the sensors and replace them when they were working just fine before. If they fail later, I'll eat those words, but they're fine for now. So I'll just plug everything back in and we'll be good to go. So I'll bring you guys back again when it is time to start reassembling. I think I can hook up darn near the whole wiring harness and then reassemble everything. But I don't know. I'll have to think about it. I'll be back. All right. Here we have the new harness, which I don't know how well you guys will be able to see, but I can tell you in person. I mean, obviously there's a big difference because this is brand new and that is less than brand new. But even still, I mean, the wiring and everything is in so much better shape. It's not dingy and worn out. I mean, obviously it's not going to be. They have this protected pretty well. I mean, and if the other harness went 280,000 miles, this one ought to do okay as well. But this right here, I was thinking, this is probably the biggest thing, because look at this. Oh, look at that. Professional. It's in and out, super easy. It's not like that was where I had to tap each of the sliders in and out. Man, that sucked. And it's not as deformed and special. So, part number. There's your part number. And I will have, like I said, I think I said earlier in the video, that was yesterday. I don't remember yesterday. I'll have all the links and stuff below. There were several places where I found this wiring harness, varying price levels, varying shipping times. Honestly, you're going to spend about $600 to $700 on this at the end of the day, depending on where you live and the tax and stuff like that. So, you know, there are worse things, but here's a good example right here. This is the back pressure sensor plug-in on the new harness. I didn't mean to jump ships too quickly. I just was like, that's going to cost money, and links will be in the description. But that's the back pressure on that one, and this is the back pressure on this one. And yeah, that's real special. So this is going to go back in the bag and then back in the box, and I'll just hang on to this. That'll be a real interesting to pull out in the future. I'll have it as an example of something. One of these days when I get bored, I'll probably cut it up, get all the tape and crap off of it, and really inspect these wires and see what the heck is going on, because sometimes you just can't tell by looking at it. But I also like how, like on this one, the turbo, the locking tab is back on there. I don't think that was causing us too much of a problem, but still. So this has been sitting out in the sun for a couple minutes, getting nice and warmed up. And since the wind is coming up, I don't know how much of what you're going to be able to hear. But, oh my goodness, Powerstroke Panther! Where'd you come from? I thought you were inside. Meow. No? You're not feeling talkative right now? Okay. Anyway, we're going to start putting the wiring harness back on by connecting the crank sensor. Then I'm going to put the compressor back and bolt it on. That could take a while. We'll plug the compressor back in. We'll route this wire up and probably plug in the rest of the harness for the most part, I'm thinking. And then we'll start reassembling all of the pulleys and drives and things of that nature. But at the very least, we have to start down there, and then I need to put that compressor back on so it's not in the way of other stuff. All right, step one will be to lay the wiring harness across the engine and just kind of get everything started routing wise, and then we can start plugging stuff in, go from there. Now, scoop my tub out of the way. I don't know about you, but I don't think they got enough wires in this harness. I'm just saying, that's just my opinion. I don't think they got nearly enough wires in this damn harness. They could have put a few more in. They had some places where they could have come off and added a couple more sensors here and there. I don't know what their problem was. Freaking lightweights. All right. Get our oil fill there. Get that all routed in. Get everything started. You got to get these little plastic channels in first on this side where this big piece is. It's screwed in, so you kind of have to route it in there like, you know, professionals. There we go. It loves it. Now, okay. All this stuff through, it has to come down through here. So you've got the plastic channel you got to keep an eye out for as well. So let's see here. There's the back pressure sensor, the turbo charger. Just kind of pull that little tree through there. Oh, almost forgot. Camshaft position sensor plug in. There we go. Okay. We can kind of route this a little bit better later if we need to. It's been so long since I've had the proper wiring in here that I don't exactly remember how it was when we first started messing with it. How about that? Okay. Oh, that's what's binding. I'm going to go ahead and pop the fuel injector harness plug-in for the driver's side we're going to go ahead and pop that in. They put these little O-rings on these tabs, I guess to stop it from coming off, but all that's doing is irritating me, so we're removing those. All right, I got you guys set there, so you can kind of see what I'm doing. There's a lift point right here, and on the channel there is a pin, a push pin that goes in there. It's supposed to mount right at that spot, but the rest of the harness is not necessarily supposed to work like that. So we've got the turbo connector, and it bolts or mounts onto the side of the fuel cooler. I wish I had my trim tool, but I'm not going to go down and get it. Not when I can just do that. Just knock this stuff out of here, these old pins. So we snake that up through here. There we go. It's lining up. Everything should line up as it's supposed to. Then snake it through there. Snake it around the hose clamps. Get it plugged in till you hear it click. Then push that red tab in, okay? That's all taken care of now. Okay. Next, that's for the back pressure sensor. And it runs along the side of the fuel cooler down here. Glow plug harness. It goes, looks like underneath the oil dipstick tube. You can be a little bit violent with the new wires and stuff, but you don't want to get too crazy, or bad things will happen. But yeah, see, now we can plug glow plugs in, slide that tab forward, and mount it. Does it mount right? Right back on there. Okay, looking good. Looking good. We'll get that back pressure plug-in out of the way for a second. We will need to route the crank position sensor, which I'm not going to put back exactly where it was, I don't think. I would much rather route it a different and better way. I think there is one, but I can't show that on camera. I just need to kind of get it situated here for a second. Oh, that's that. All right, the back pressure sensor can come through all that dirt because it loves it, and it plugs in somewhere along here. I don't really care where. Back pressure sensor on, retaining clip on. Plug the, there we go, get the cable secured on the side of the fuel cooler bracket. You know what? I'm gonna mess with that one later. Okay, now, and of course the wind comes up, but that's okay. I'm standing right here next to the microphone. I'm gonna go ahead and take this tape off because I don't know that I want it on there. And we'll get this snaked down in there. I don't know how many of these retaining tabs I'm gonna be able to use, but this one right here is the one we want for that crank position sensor. So does it rotate? No, it's just stiff. Okay. And we'll set the other one kind of right there. We will. All right, so on this, can you see it? I don't know. Come here. All right. See how on these plug-ins here for the fuel injector harness, they got those O-rings. I'm taking them off. You can leave them on if you want to. I don't want them on there. The reason why I don't want them on there is because they're just going to be in the way if I have to come back in here and remove anything. So we'll just pull 1 and 2, which you can't see. There's a lot of not being able to see on this. Trust me, my view ain't much better. I'm the one doing everything. Oh, the wind. Thank you, wind. Okay. And then they line up, and there's only like one way they can go on, really, so it's kind of hard to mess them up. Yeah. Does it go? Hang on here. There's a... yeah. It goes that way. Yeah, it only goes on one way. I just have to figure out which way. Okay, that took a little while. I just didn't have it lined up. God, just... Anyway, I had to twist it and it shoved on, okay. Nice and tight. I don't think we'll be needing those little O-ring deals because that is not coming off. It moves a little bit, but the injector harness plugs in from the inside. This right here, I got routed. There's a clip here on this heater pipe, or heater hose pipe, whatever you want to call it, where the wires clip in. There's this solid plastic tube as a heat shield. It attaches right here where this bend is in the oil drain back tube, and then it also attaches a little farther down. And you may have to look a little bit to find it, but this is the dual wire for the AC and the crank position sensor. You know, I can never find my damn pointer when I need it. I don't know where I left it. I really don't. Maybe it's on the back of the pickup. Anyway, we don't need it right now. With all that plugged in down there, which I'll get in a little bit closer so you can see, it's plugged in there. So now I get to route it back and attach it to the crank position sensor, which is buried down in there. I promise it's right there. So I'm going to crawl underneath and do that, get the compressor bolted back on, and we'll keep filming. Okay. Well, we're getting stuff hooked back up. You can see the first bolt for the compressors right there. I think I can get underneath. I'm going to try anyway and crawl underneath here and show you guys what I have been struggling with, which is the hard part. Now, I found my pointer. It was here in my pocket the whole time. All right. So, of course, the sun's going to come up and be a bit of a nuisance. All right, so let me find my, okay. The pulley on the compressor is right up here, okay? So these are the two lower bolts. This right here, not that line, but that other piece, that's that stupid frame support that runs across underneath the motor. And you can get to this bolt. It's a little difficult. You're going to hit this, but you can get in there with like a 1/4 inch extension and these are 10 millimeter headed bolts. That one back there, you can only get to with a wrench, which maybe if I'm really talented, I can, yeah, you can only get on it with a wrench and slowly tighten the darn thing down. And it takes a while. And, gosh, that's freaking bright. That's sun. Yeah, now you can see it better. One bolt, 2 bolt, and then the third one's on top. There's probably a torque spec for them, but I don't really give a crap what it is because there ain't no way I'm getting a torque wrench in there. So it's just going to get as snug as I can get them with either this or this. And that'll just have to be good enough. But I don't really need that on right now. So, yeah, that's 90% of your time is working on stupid stuff like this, on these 6.4s. When you got to get something apart, most of your time is spent on one stupid-ass component that just does not want to cooperate. They're getting back in there all right. I got everything lined up, and as you can see right there off the end of my finger is the wire for the crank position sensor. And interestingly enough, it comes in, and then you know how it's supposed to loop back around and then plug in? Well, there's supposed to be a mount there to help keep it curled without binding it. Well, I couldn't find out where that thing was because I'm pretty sure the plastic broke off in the hole that the new, whatever the hell it's called, I'll think of it later. Whatever the thing is called that plugs into the engine that holds everything in place, they're zip tied onto the freaking wiring harness all the time. The spot where it's supposed to be, around where that sensor is at, I don't know, because like I said, I'm pretty sure the old one, the plastic piece, broke off. So I just did the best I could. It's either going to hold together or it's not. And that'll be that. So, and then, like I said earlier, you got to take your steering damper off, and then there's another, well, right there in that hole. Your 2 battery cables go together, and then right there is that bolt I was talking about that goes right into the crankcase. So be mindful of it too. I'm going to go ahead and get the rest of this tightened down and move on. All right, AC compressor is all hooked up like it's supposed to be. Passenger side glow plugs hooked up. Of course, passenger side fuel injection harness is all hooked up. I got this stuff untaped. That's for your mass airflow, and that's for your AC cycling switch, which is right here. So, next step, because it's going to be the most difficult, the next step is going to be to get the accessory drive bracket back on with all the tensioners and pulleys. I'm going to put the AC belt on, and then I'm going to go ahead and put the serpentine belt on. I think that will put the alternator back in here, and I can hook all it up, and we'll finalize this side, and we'll kind of get this cleaned up in here and ready. But putting that AC belt in will be a lot easier with the steering damper out of the way and stuff like that. So that'll all get in, put all the pulleys in, and the serpentine belt, that's not too bad. The bracket can literally only go on one way. We'll slide it on these, tighten it down. Oil drain back tubes out of the way. This is nice and out of the way. Shouldn't interfere with anything. We'll get all the pulleys hooked back up. Finish up the wiring kind of on this side, and then we'll finish up the other side. Woo boy! Getting all them belts and stuff back in is not fun. That AC belt system in particular is, whoo! That's a nightmare. Alright, so I'm going to tell you what order to put all this crap back in, because it does have to go back in a certain order, or you'll screw everything up. First thing you need to do is put the bracket on, tighten it down from the inside out as best you can. Okay? Get her pretty tight. You don't have to get it like ridiculously tight, but you want to do that. Now, second step is to install the AC tensioner, which is down below. You can't see it. Well, I guess you kind of can, right off the end of my thing there. It's down there, but install the AC tensioner, then put the AC belt on. The best way to put the AC belt on, you can get it off without any problem. You can just cut the damn thing if you wanted to, but to get it on, the best way to do it is to put it over the crankshaft pulley first, then work it over the compressor pulley, then work it over the pulley on the tensioner. And you're going to want a longer handled 3/8 drive ratchet or breaker bar, and you are probably going to want a cheater, a small one, because that is a tight ass tensioner. It is tighter than the tensioner for the main belt. So once you get the AC belt on, and once you're done cussing whoever designed that, and that's probably going to take a while, you know, once you're done doing that and you calm down, come put your idlers on. Now keep in mind that there is an idler that is designed to kind of press onto this here, and then there's a second idler that just bolts on. All right, so you want to make sure that the idler that is designed to press onto here, it's going to have a loose bolt. The bolt should come out and away from it. The idler back in there, the bolt should stay with it. There should be a heavy washer on the back side. It goes over here. This is stepped so that this pulley goes on, bolted on. Tighten all that down, put your main tensioner on, put your serpentine belt on. Now, if you're curious, if for whatever reason this label is gone, you can find this on the internet pretty easy, but this is your belt layout here, okay? If you have a single alternator, then that is your belt routing, okay? See that dotted line there? It goes right across from the power steering underneath that idler right there. Now, if you had your second alternator or second generator, whatever, if you had that in there, then you would ignore that dotted line and you'd follow this setup here. But it's pretty hard to screw up because you're going to have two different sizes of belts for this, you know, so it's kind of hard to mess up. But yeah, crankshaft, tensioner, alternator, idler, water pump, power steering, and then that's your second generator, that one right there. So that's your, one more time, that's your belt routing if you need it. I don't know why you'd put a 5.4 in an F250. That seems kind of dumb, but whatever. I guess people like them. Once you get all that done, you can come up here and start connecting stuff again. I'll go ahead and hop up here and show you it because I've already done it. Oh my gosh. I'm getting real tired of doing this. All right, so all this stuff was connected, like I said. So you have your oil pressure sensor, and then back behind in there, see that yellow? That's your water temperature sensor, or no. Crap, I don't remember what it is. Might be your oil temperature sensor, not sure, because your water temperature sensor is right down here. This is your fuel temperature. Then over here, and I'll go ahead and hook them up real quick. You can't screw these up. They only go on one way. You've got your manifold absolute pressure map sensor. And then you've got your air intake temperature sensor 2. Oh, it's got to go on there. There. Then push that tab down to lock it. Now, this is, in case you were wondering, this is the same pigtail as the back pressure sensor, which I've already got hooked up. They give you these little, sometimes they give you these little snap-on clips to help hold stuff on. Make sure you do that. On this water temperature sensor one, you see the wire. It sticks out. It runs, down underneath this. You can get it through. It just takes a little maneuvering. You might want to rotate that hose clamp for the power steering, and then it snakes under there. When you're done, it should look like this. So you'll have to shove your wire back through here, and then that way, plug it in, and then bring that clip around and snap it onto the sensor. That's going to help keep everything nice and solid. And then, of course, your tray here bolts on here, and it also bolts right there. And there's a little bolt that goes in. I haven't hooked any of that stuff up yet just because. Then, of course, you saw me do all of this. The turbo actuator is all hooked up, locked in place. Back pressure sensor wire, locked in place. Now, the crank position, which I'm going to have to go underneath and connect the rest of the way. How I did it, and you can do it a little bit differently, but here's the main wire, okay? So, try and get you so you can see it. Yeah, you really can't. Oh, I guess you can this way. I curved it up around. I went by this. I don't know if this is exactly how they did it or not. And then down there, right here, it clips into that plastic hose pipe, plastic pipe. And then what you have to do is run it. And I don't know if you can see, you have to run it kind of back down that way and around and through, and you want it to come out in that general area. You can't see it. There's not enough light, but it's in there. I got it started. It just hasn't snapped into place. So I think I need to crawl underneath and do that, or get my cinder block back over here so I have a little more height and I can bend over and plug it in. All that's hooked up, and that should finish up the driver's side once the cam position sensor is plugged in. This stuff right here, this one, and that one are for your EGR. And look, if you have EGR on this, you're on your own, if I haven't said that already. I've never had to screw with it. I pity the fool that has it on their truck. I understand if you can't get rid of it because you live in somewhere like, I don't know, California, but if you're anywhere sensible, delete your freaking truck. You're going to kill this engine if you leave that EGR crap on here. But that one, and that one, you can tape them off or you can leave them. It's whatever you want to do. I recommend covering them, taping them off, something, just so water doesn't get in there and short circuit stuff. That's for the fan, so don't break it. And then on the other side, now that we're finally getting some stuff taken care of, I need to get the alternator plugged in. I need to finish tightening down that bolt to hold it in place. Belt's nice and tight. It's nice and aligned. And yeah, you're going to get dirty working on this. So, everything's looking good so far. Don't forget that this wire here that goes down, it clips in to this plastic heater pipe. So the next step is to get the alternator. I believe that's what I want to do next, is get the alternator hooked up. But that can wait. The next thing I'm going to do, if the wind will quit blowing, the next thing I need to do is get the fan back in. The best way to do that is to put, where is it? Put this in first. Don't tighten it or anything, but put it in first. Then get your fan, put it on. Then you can maneuver your shroud back in place and tighten it down. Actually, you can tighten the shroud down and then put the fan clutch on the pulley. So, to be clear, shroud frame thing, this right here, put that in first. Don't tighten it. Put your fan clutch and fan assembly in. Don't put it on. Tighten the shroud frame, get it in, get it all set. Then put your fan on. Then you could put the shroud back in, tighten it down. Don't forget to route your four-wheel drive up the side like it was, and run all your hoses back and tighten all this crap down. Get everything back together like you're ready to put the battery boxes in, because the rest of this can be hooked up with the fan and everything installed. And I was planning on filming that, but as you can probably hear, the wind is picking up and it's gusting for longer and longer periods of time before it's calmed down. And yeah, that's not fun. So I'm going to go ahead and keep on working on this, and I will bring you back when it is time to connect all this crap. It's pretty self-explanatory at this point. If you got the harness off, you should be able to get it back on without any problem. I'm just going over it to say I did, pretty much. So, all right. Fan is in. Wires are hooked up. And now we can... Okay, that's as tight as it needs to be. The nice thing is about fan clutches, because they are threaded opposite the direction they're supposed to turn, or however I'm supposed to explain that. Basically, as you run the engine and the fan gets resistance on it, it's just going to tighten up against the water pump. So you spin it on there, just make sure it's on there good with your wrench, and you'll be mint. So next step is to get that in, not the broom, the shroud. Drop that in here, then we'll tighten this back up, put those bolts in and those bolts in. Excuse me. Secure everything back, and then we'll start dropping battery boxes in, and then we'll refill the coolant, and then we'll finish. I'm going to finish everything by hooking up this side, because that's going to be super duper fun. But you know what? We don't have to wait on. Come on now, don't be that way. Oh yeah. Hang on now. There we go. Nice. Real nice. I like it. Okay. I'll have to mess with that and get it out of the way a little bit. Think maybe if I do something like that, am I supposed to go around that tower? Maybe? No, I don't have enough room. Well, I'll route that somehow. Point is, the fan's in, fan's tight. Now it's time for the shroud. Now that is looking a lot better. I got pretty much everything over here hooked up. This is real stiff, but it's locked in. It's not going anywhere. That looks nice having that handle on. I got this plugged in. Everything back in there, you can see both of the big glow plug connectors, and then back in there you can see, come on, focus. There you go. See that little bit of red? That's for that exhaust temperature plug-in. It does snap into that glow plug module bracket. You don't have to, but I think it's generally a good idea. Over here, we have the high pressure fuel pump plugged in. Of course, all that stuff's still plugged in. I went ahead and put a little curl in the fan plug-in so that it is not sticking up and being obtrusive into everything else. I need to tighten that bolt up though, right there. And then I got that bolt that is back in here. See that green right there? That's where it goes. It lines up with the heater hose and everything, and you'll see it when you get in there. But where did I put my? There we are. I need my 10mm socket, and I'll tighten up that bolt right there real quick. So I also got everything hooked up here for the four-wheel drive module. I still need to hook the vacuum lines up. That coolant hose is routed back across. Now down here for the alternator, the cable that goes on, that's pretty difficult to get on to get started. You got to get it just right so it'll slide. Then you can get the nut started and tighten it down the rest of the way. And I also got right there, got that plugged in. So we're looking pretty good. Just got to snug that one down. Oh, what a production this is to get done. It's a long-winded bolt, isn't it? All right, so see, stuff like this is why I'm not filming every second of it. It took way longer to screw that down than I thought it would. And you translate that out about 15 to 80 different things on a vehicle, and that's why I don't always film every little detail. What we don't need in here is the wood shim. It's biodegradable. It'll be fine. So, next step. Oh, excuse me, Mother Nature. Would you like to make more noise? Anyway, next step is to put that battery box in because it has the coolant reservoir. We'll dump all the coolant back in. Now, here's the real fun part. Ah, there it is. Come here, you. All right. So, remember this little clip? I told you not to lose it. It goes on that hose. Here's the fun part. You get to put the battery box back in, get the hose lined up, and put this clip on. Well, we're almost there. Air cleaner's in, everything's hooked up. I just gotta throw a couple batteries in it and maybe top off the coolant a little more. It was low when I started, but it was probably low from the last time I worked on this. So I'll do that, get my tools picked up, hook the scanner on it, and we'll see what all is going on, if anything. All right, now we're at the fun part of scanning and clearing the codes. I'm not even going to go read the codes. I don't care what they are. I'm erasing everything that I can erase. And then we'll see what's left. And then we'll go look at the... All right. We'll go look at the live data here in a minute. I want to see what it's saying after it's cleared the codes. All right. So read, key on, engine off. Okay. Good grief. Okay, sensor circuit, low input. That might clear up. Well, I don't think that's worth messing. Let's go to the live data here. The best way to see if everything's hooked up is to look at your temperatures. If your coolant temperature is reading, you're probably on the safe side, in addition to all your other stuff. But if you're not registering anything, that's bad, and something's not connected right. I should be pretty well connected on everything, though. Alright, so the pressure switch is open, so it's okay. Alright, the accelerator position is still working. Battery positive voltage a little low, that's okay. What's that? Are they in synchronization? No, that's a problem. Position sensor status, no fault. Crank fueling disabled. No fault, no faults. Well, we don't need to worry about the particulate filter because it's not here. All right, EGR temperature, that's not good. Wait, I can't remember which one it is. Well, that's okay. Engine oil temperature, 50 degrees Fahrenheit, that's normal. It's about 50 outside. Engine coolant temperature, 51, okay. So we're good there. Exhaust back pressure, no faults yet. Okay, so the big thing that we want to look for is generator. All right, so there's no faults with the command line. Generator fault indicator lamp on. Well, battery voltage is low. So, you know. All right. What we want to look at here, intake air temperature, 60. All right, we're reading good there. Air take temperature 2 is 50. That's good. Manifold absolute pressure. Okay, that's all reading. Everything is reading just fine. So, what we need to do is short-term fuel trim. That's what we want to watch when we start this up, which is what we're going to do. All right. Now, it's still not running right. I can feel it vibrating. Well, that's not normal. I'll have to run this for a minute and see what the heck the problem is. Alright, welcome back. It has been several days and we have not been able to run this because the rear, let's see, that'd be the rear left caliper decided to blow a piston out. It's because the lower slide pin was seized and I was going to change it out and change the pads, but it quit before I could do that. So I just finished putting calipers on. It's kind of windy outside, so I'm not going to go outside, but I've been sitting here letting this idle for the past, I don't know, 30 minutes or so, because I've been bleeding the brake calipers a little bit. They're not completely done, so we're not driving it or anything now. I left the wheels off, but if you bleed it a bit and then let it sit for a while, it will go ahead, that air will collect, and then you can push it the rest of the way out in one go. But anyway, I digress. The big thing is, been letting this sit, and it just started running really, really rough. I mean, right as I pulled the camera out and hit record, it just cut out and started running like shit. So this has not changed, because before, when I first came out here, started this up, cold start, it was perfectly fine. Perfectly fine. Sounded beautiful. So then I started screwing with it. The wheels are off, but I put it in drive, and you know, I ran it a little bit, and then it started running rough after a couple minutes. Put it back in park. I was waiting for it to clear up, waiting for it to clear up. It didn't after several minutes. Get the scanner out. I look at it. It's still saying this on cylinder 3. Cylinder 3 is the issue here. It's still saying that. And so I let it run and I let it run, and then I shut it off, wait 3 seconds, turn it back on, runs freaking beautiful. And then a few minutes later, I get the camera out, starts running rough again. But now we have a check engine light. So what we're gonna do is shut it off, keep the key on, and we'll get out of here. We'll go back and see what codes we have. So, like I said, it's been several days since we have done anything with it, or since I've done anything with it, because literally the day after I finished putting the harness on, that caliper quit. So this has been sitting here for like a week. Key on, engine off. We're gonna see what it says, but I mean, we finally got a check engine light. The wiring harness did help some stuff. And we're about to find out depending on what codes are thrown here, but I'm not getting any like mass airflow sensor issues or anything like that. And some of that wiring was kind of bad, as you probably saw earlier in the video. It's been, like I said, it's been a week and I've been busy doing other stuff. I'm short-brained right now, trying to keep it together. Anyway, still establishing vehicle communication. Takes forever. And what was I saying? Oh yeah, anyway. We haven't had a chance to run it, but the wiring harness, we did take it for a test drive the day I finished the wiring harness, which was after the last segment you saw where I was like, oh, I gotta go see what's wrong. After that, we did take it for a test drive. It sat, it warmed up, absolutely zero indication of any problems. So it got nice and hot. All right, so what the hell's this? Circuit low input, contribution balance fault, misfire. Okay, well I think this is a mass airflow sensor issue. It's not the wiring harness. It can't be. Cylinder 3 contribution balance fault. Okay. And then the mass airflow sensor thing's back. I don't know why that is. May have to get a mass airflow sensor and put on. Curious. So at this point, here's what I'm thinking. Actually, you know what? Let's go back to the live data. Actually, let's check the injector electrical codes. Then we'll go back to the live data and start this thing back up and see what it's going to do. Because it's doing the exact same thing that it was before. It'll run beautifully, and then it will cut out and start running like a 6.0 or 7.3, except worse. And sometimes it'll smoke when it's doing that. Sometimes it won't. There is a little bit of smoke, but the tailpipe is saturated with oil from the turbo going out. Criminy. It's like the dirty 30s out here. So, again, what was I saying? Man, I really am short-brained today. Good grief. I'll think of it in a second. Okay, well, while I'm thinking of what my train of thought was, no fault codes detected on the injectors. Let's go back to the live data. And then we'll start this back up. Oh, yeah. Pickup's doing the same thing it was before I replaced the wiring harness. I think replacing the wiring harness did not hurt for no other reason than now I know for a fact that is not the issue. So, that narrows down the issue. Let's scroll down here to the short-term fuel trim. Now the wiring harness is not an issue. I know it's not an issue. That narrows down the potential problems to a few things. It can be the PCM. It can be the PCM. See, the mass airflow sensor is reading, so it can't be foobarred because it is reading. So, it could be the PCM. Hey, if this thing's making that much torque and it's not even running, that's not good. That is not good at all. Module voltage is right. Because what this says to me is that there's still some kind of an electrical issue. Anyway, for the third time, the problem now could be PCM, which if I'm getting a bunch of random electrical issues still, I'm going to say PCM. Could be that. Could be... I don't think it's battery connections because the module voltage is fine. Let's start this back up real quick and see. What? Okay. That's the pickup shaking, not me. Okay, so here, it's adjusting, smoothing out. Bouncy, bouncy, bouncy. I don't know that the PCM knows what the hell to do. So that could be an issue. It could be the battery cables. Sometimes that causes problems. I don't think that's it. It could be the injector wiring harness that's underneath the valve cover. It shouldn't be. Excuse me. Oh, see, there it's smoothed out. Now it's running. Now it's running perfect. Just smooth as could be. See, when this is running right, it should be running super smooth. Turn the air conditioning on. It's getting hot in here. So, it could be, like I said, the injector electrical harness, which it doesn't have that much on it in terms of miles or hours, but, you know, stranger things have happened. It could be the injector. We've been buying reman injectors. Motorcraft is not above making a mistake. It's not out of the realm of possibility that we could have... See, it's still at it's still adding 19% fuel, 18% fuel. Everything else is different though. What's it? All of these values are different for all 8 cylinders. They're not what they were before I replaced the harness, except for number 3. It's still where it was. Oh, see there, it skipped for a minute. Now it's adjusting again. Maybe it just needs to be run. And we'll talk about that in a minute. See, now it's just skipping a little bit. Yep. it hits number 3 cylinder and it cuts out. Weird. Anyway, it could be number 3 injector. And what else could it be? Well, I don't know. Those are all the things I can think of. Maybe a vacuum leak? I don't know. This isn't a gas. It shouldn't be. This thing's starting to get shaky. Now it's running like crap. This is what I have to put up with around here. Yeah, now it's back to running rough. See, now it's jumping around all over the place. Now the engine and everything is hot, but the fan still works. I think if I rev it up, the fan will kick in. Oh yeah, fan still works. So, right now, what I'm thinking is that it's the PCM. Because this is just being goofy. It's running like crap right now. And then it'll smooth out for just a second, and then it'll go back to running like crap. I did clear the injector pump adaptive tables. I did clear those a couple times, so it may still be adjusting. What happens when I hold the brake? Makes it run like crap. Let off. Now it's fine. What happens when I put it in drive? I ain't going nowhere. There's no rear wheels. Yeesh. All right, now. All evened out. Reverse. No difference. Park. Sometimes it changes between reverse and drive. Sometimes the computer detects different stuff and it adjusts differently. See, now what are we running for engine RPM? Let's go look at that. All right, so here's how I know the engine's not worn out. It's making all the power. Look at that. It's still making power. It's not even bothered. Yeah, we know there's a misfire. Mass airflow frequency is within spec. Manifold absolute pressure. See, all this stuff is hooked up and it's reading, so I know it's not the wiring harness. No injector faults. Of course, this never reads anything as an injector fault. Yeah, we are low on fuel, and that could be that there's some water in there, and that's why it's running like shit. Exhaust temps where it should be. Press on the brake. No increase in engine load. Engine oil temperature's fine. Engine, hang on, did I miss the engine RPM? Engine revolutions per minute. It's jumping all over the place. See, if it's going to vary between like 10 to 15 RPM, that's one thing. But this is like 20 to 30, sometimes 40. Just goofy. It doesn't know what to do with itself. But, shut off. Turn back on. Yeah, it's still running like crap. Okay. We'll just turn the key on and leave it. Well, that's certainly food for thought. I think what we're going to have to do at this point is just run the damn thing. And we're just going to have to run it and see what it does. It might be another problem. But I know it's not the wiring harness. There's no way. It's reading all the temperatures and everything. So it's not bothered. I know I hooked everything up right. There's literally only one way that harness can go on. So what I'm leaning towards right now is PCM or something really stupid that I'm not considering. A lot of people are probably going to be in the comments saying, oh, you need to run a compression check. You need to do all that. Yeah, compression and like bad rings, crack piston, foobarred injector, they don't fix themselves when you shut the key off and turn it back on. Because sometimes I can do that. It's not doing it now, but before I turn the camera on, I shut this off, I wait, I turn the key back on, runs like a freaking dream. I mean, just perfect. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, it just starts cutting out. I don't care who you are, bad rings, cracked piston, a bad injector, bent valve, worn out valve, whatever. That doesn't magically fix itself when you shut the key off or you shut the engine off and you turn it back on. Okay, that's not how it works. It's going to do the same damn thing regularly. This is so random. Right now it seems consistent, but I bet if we started driving this around, you wouldn't notice it. The other thing, it's not smoking. The whole time I've been filming, not a puff of smoke has come out of that tailpipe. Sometimes it'll just smoke like you wouldn't believe, and it reeks of fuel, and then other times it doesn't. So it's anyone's guess as to what's going on here, but I'm leaning towards PCM. And I was going to do this segment and then we'd drive it and I'd come back and finish the video up, but I think I'm just going to end the video here. It's long enough as it is, and I know I hooked the wiring harness up right, so if you're watching this for the wiring harness, that's all correct. I didn't screw that up. It's something else, though. Now, that's not to say that if you came here and you were having the same issues I described in the beginning, if I described any issues in the beginning of the video, I don't remember if I did, but if you're having those kinds of problems and you're like, yeah, I think wiring harness might be a good thing to try and replace, it's not going to hurt, because on a vehicle with how many freaking miles? Nobody cares about the tire pressure. 279,860 miles. 5.8 average miles per gallon. Yeah, something's screwed up in here. Anyway, when you get electrical problems like that, you replace a wiring harness, it's not going to hurt anything, because at least then you know that all the wiring is good. But in my case, something else is going on, and I just flat don't think it's mechanical. Now, I might find out later that it is mechanical, and if it is, then I'll eat my words. But I get people in the comments on these Powerstroke videos telling me, oh, you need to check compression, your injector's bad, your cylinder's bad, there's too much blow-by, your engine's shot. Yeah, there is a lot of blow-by, I'll grant you that. But is the engine shot? Oh, hell no, it's not. When we took this for a test drive, Dad got on that pedal, and he didn't floor it, but he really opened her up, and it flat freaking took off. It is not hurting for power. And it ran just beautiful during that test drive. The only time it didn't, we left the house, we drove 6 miles to the highway, there's a stop sign there, he hit the brake, and it started running real rough and belching smoke, but within like 15 seconds, it had adjusted, and it evened out, and it was fine. Perfectly fine. We drove it all the way back here, no issues. So, I'll be damned if I know what the hell's going on for certain right now. But we'll get it figured out. I'm going to go ahead and end the video here. If you made it to the end, thank you. This is quite a production, as usual. I don't know how long it's going to be by the time I get it all done. Probably an hour. That seems to be the standard length of videos I do. It takes as long as it takes to make the content and do it right, as correctly as I possibly can. But, yeah. I feel like I'm forgetting something. I don't know what it is. All part numbers will be down in the description. And we're just going to run this, and probably there'll be another video out in the future. And we'll just kind of go from there. See if this thing is shot or if it's just electrical and computer problems. I don't know.